I'm going to call to order the City of Longview Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for July 15th, 2014. Please stand for the invocation. Commissioner Burke.
Let us bow. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your presence here today with us. We thank you for giving us guidance and giving us opportunity in this great country, this great land, and this great city. Now today, Father, we ask that you would guide our thoughts and guide our decisions as we try to do those things that would be right in your eyes and the eyes of everyone else. Now we just give you the honor and we give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see. Get the playlist here. Okay, item 4, approval of the June 17th, 2014 Planning and Zoning minutes. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions? Having none, do I have a motion?
I'd move approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Having a motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, the consent agenda. Let me get my list here. The items on the consent agenda are plats that meet the requirements of the City of Longview subdivision ordinance. These items will be approved with one vote unless any member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, any member of the public, or the applicant would like an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. Do I have a request to replace the consent agenda? Having none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
Having a motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the board. Tonight is the first of 2 public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The board also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed tonight will be: the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order: applicant, then staff, then the general public, those in support of, and those in opposition to. If you are part of a large group with a common interest, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson rather than have each individual restate the same information. When addressing the board, please begin by stating your name and address. Try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. After each public hearing is closed, the board will vote on the request. Zoning requests and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on July the 17th, 2014. Item A on the regular agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Be August.
August, I'm sorry. August 21st, I'm sorry.
July 17th.
See, you could have put anything on there and I'd have read it. I mean, August 21st. Okay, thank you. Okay, item A on the regular agenda. A public hearing will be held to consider application Z 14-07 filed by East Texas Building and Properties LLC requesting a rezone from single-family SF4 to parking to allow for expansion of a parking lot for approximately 0.67 acres of the proposed Lot 5, Block 2, Church Point Number 2, located on the north side of Church Street, east of Airline Road. Who here represents this request?
My name is Mike Alston. I live at 1310 Montclair, and I'm representing East Texas Building and Properties.
Okay. Mr. Alston, tell us about your project.
Well, this is a tract that's going to be created by plat amendment that will abut the parking lot currently owned by Texas Roadhouse, which will allow them to have additional parking to expand their restaurant, which
It's
they're
greatly
planning to
needed.
do once this is hopefully approved.
Which is greatly needed because they're parking out on the loop at the
Yes,
moment.
they are.
Okay. Any commissioners have questions for Mr. Alston? Having none, staff comments.
May I ask
Oh.
a question? Excuse me. What's the square footage of the expansion that's planned?
I apologize, but I don't know the exact square footage of it. It's .7 acres. It's approximately 239 feet long, and it's nearly 80 feet wide, so that we could accommodate, or they can accommodate, whatever the specific requirements are to use it for parking with a 10-foot green space. So we determined how much depth they would need to put a road down the middle, parking on either side, a T at the end, and that was about 80 by 240.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yes,
Now, do I understand that there's going to be an expansion of the building itself?
I am told that there's going to be an expansion of the Texas Roadhouse.
And do you know what that square footage is?
No, ma'am, I do not. But they know that they can't do very much in the terms of expansion without having more parking. And this is something we've considered a couple of years ago, because they had been thinking about this for a while, but were never able to kind of get their act together. And now they understand they're going to need that parking, and we've made provision for it when we did the original replat of this land over there for the houses we're building. The lots that are remaining will still be very large, and this property all the way in the back that doesn't really affect anybody. So,
I have a question of staff. When that property was built, did they meet the parking requirements?
Yes, ma'am. They currently meet the parking requirements even through all the expansions that they have done over the last couple of years. Our parking ratio,
Yes,
they met that
they did meet
requirement.
that.
They exceeded it for a while, but just, the Longview depends on the vehicle far too often, and they don't have enough for their need, but they meet our parking requirement.
And how many more spaces will be added with this additional property? Do you know?
I believe it's 80.
80.
And this was based on a draft that we had drawn up for them at the beginning of this process, but specifically, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Alston? Which I think is greatly needed because people are parking out by the loop. I mean, whenever I go, I have to park over in the hotel's parking lot a lot of times next door. So anyhow, staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. As stated, the applicant is requesting a rezone from single-family 4 to parking zoning designation for P. Comprehensive plan for this area. Let me go back. Does designate this area for medium-intensity business, which is consistent with business occupancy. As stated, it is to allow for just the parking lot expansion. A number of years ago, we amended the zoning ordinance to create this zoning category specific for instances like this where we needed additional capacity for parking next to restaurants or businesses that were traditionally near residential areas where there may be a vacant lot or something that was encroaching, where it was appropriate to add a parking lot where we could shield it through screening and buffering to allow that expansion, but it may not be appropriate to fully rezone it for full commercial or full retail benefit, which is the case here. When they came to us and we looked at this, we just said, well, we definitely understand the need for additional parking. We feel like this is a great idea. We have reservations about rezoning it to heavy commercial because of all the potential negatives down the road, especially encroaching further into the residential area. But we have just the thing for you, and that's the parking designation. It will be plat restricted so that it could only be a parking lot. As stated, they will have to maintain screening and buffering per city, minimum city code, as we develop that site plan for that expansion. We just feel that this is a good compromise to allow the expansion, as he stated. The impact will be on the adjacent property here that they are developing. These lots are very deep, so it's not going to be just right on top of the residences with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, screening, buffering, and all. So staff does feel confident that there'll be no direct negative impact, and we recommend approval. And I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Commissioner, questions for staff?
I have questions for staff. What will we be requiring for screening buffer?
The zoning ordinance does require a minimum of a 6-foot wooden privacy fence, as well as a 10-foot undisturbed buffer area that would have to have green space, so many trees within that area. And then any lighting that they would have to be down shielded or designed in such a manner to not impact the adjacent residential areas.
So this 10-foot buffer, where would it actually fall in relation to the subject property?
It would be along this southern boundary and then also this eastern boundary.
Okay, and there would also be
A little
fencing?
portion. Yes,
And the fencing would run where?
it would run along that same boundary. You would have the fence on the property line, and then you would have that 10-foot area between the fence and where the first car parking space would be, so that you wouldn't have that vehicle right on the property line with that direct impact.
Any,
Who will maintain that buffer area?
It will be the responsibility of the property owner, whether that, if, Roadhouse or whoever owns that facility, it would be their responsibility.
Will there be landscaping required, or is it just a green area
It'd
and a
be,
fence?
there are trees that would be required in that buffer area,
Thank you.
and they have to be irrigated
but
also.
the landscaping and all that would be part of their site plan.
Sure, and they will
development.
probably have to do some additional landscaping, not just the buffering and the trees, because they are developing an undeveloped site, so they'll have to landscape based on that development area.
They'll have to submit a landscaping plan when they submit their construction plans for that. And then, I hate to ask this question, but I think I already know the answer. When they do that, that's going to have to be irrigated too.
Correct.
With automatic sprinklers. Okay, any other questions for staff?
Is there any other access to or from that lot besides where it connects to the,
No, they would be plat restricted also to not have any direct access to Church Street through these lots because they are
back
residential.
parking lot or any of those?
We're not restricting them from the bank parking lot. If in the future they could gain shared access, that would be a bonus. But they're not proposing that right now. They will have to provide for fire department turnaround at the end of this. They'll have to provide a T because this will still have to meet fire code for accessibility and so forth.
Any other questions for staff? Having none, the public hearing is now open for application Z 14-07. Who present wishes to speak in additional support? Who present wishes to speak in opposition to this request? And just come to the podium.
Oh, just come up to the podium here.
Darrell Manning, 505 Church Street, Longview, 75605. Darrell Manning, D-A-R-H-A-L.
And spell your last name.
M-A-N-N-I-N-G.
Okay. You've got the floor, Mr. Manning.
All right, I'm speaking against this because we're trying to enhance our community. We came up here several years ago to try to get the road widened, and we're still unsuccessful at that. And then we're trying to develop some building in the area, and we seem to be doing some success at that as well. But as far as for backing that parking lot up, there should have been some kind of studies about that before, because when I put up my fence, I requested a meeting with the owner of the Roadhouse, and I asked him about, well, aren't you all supposed to put up a fence? And he said, well, we came here before the ordinance was put into place, and so we don't have to put up a fence. I said, well, I would like to put up a fence because of the activity that's going on in your back parking lot and so forth. And he said, well, hey, I'm game for it. We can go ahead and do that and so forth. And so that's what we did was we developed that plot of land, and we did, see that there were other buildings coming in, and that's what we wanted to do, which was to enhance the development in that area. We still want to request a widening and so forth, but we still want to maintain that area for that purpose. And that's what we were wanting to do, is to speak against that, because we think that might, I walk back there all the time.
You're talking about a widening of Church Street?
Yes.
Okay.
You can hardly go down that by, 2 cars. We had to pull over to the side and so forth. But when we're walking back there along the business lines and so forth, I don't even see where the hotel is, because, it's totally, a lost fit, because there's no parking. The restaurant that's next to it is it's very small. Then the Waffle House and so forth. So that way, they crowded a lot of business in that area, and there was no consideration made to be, placed on what would possibly be the parking area. And there's no, I don't.
Well, I think there was consideration as far as the required parking, number of parking places that was required, because before a project like that can be built, that has to go, there's site plans, there's engineering, there's drainage, there's everything that goes through development services. Sure. And the City of Longview has very specific ordinances that cover number of parking spaces, typically for a given square footage of whatever type of project it is, whether it's retail or restaurant or whatever. It's just that particular restaurant is very popular place.
Exactly. But it's about like what the Raging Cajun or whatever it
Yes,
is
sir.
restaurant is. There's people parking right there behind the building,
Well, and-
adjacent to it.
Well-
And that was really, and there are police officers and so forth out there, but for that opening right there, that was really an overload real quick. And we were just saying.
Well, and I understand your concerns, but an additional concern to that is that given that they did coordinate and follow City of Longview ordinances, prior to the construction, like I said, it's a popular place, and out there in front of it on the loop side where people park and there's cars all over the place, it's kind of somewhat of a safety hazard too.
Exactly.
For people trying to pull out onto the loop because the place is so packed.
Exactly. But I'm just saying the utilization of the dentist's office adjacent to it is, it's been utilized, and he made a purchase back there for that, purpose and so forth, and the parking out in front and all that. I'm not saying that I'm against it, but what I'm saying is to develop that bumper as you're requesting, it just kind of looked like you're trying to mark down our, price value as well.
Where do you
Well,
do that?
505 Church Street.
Where's that on the map?
That's
Show me on the map, that's where we see.
right where right at that area right there.
How was this property acquired,
The-
where they're gonna put this parking lot?
I don't know.
They haven't acquired
They
it
haven't
yet.
acquired it yet.
What
Yes, sir.
Mr. Alston is trying to rezone it so that we can then replat it or do a plat amendment and then sell it.
Is all the folks that property's going to be bought from agreed to that?
Mr. Alston owns all of that property or has it under control.
Okay.
Well, and Mr. Manning, that's what I was going to kind of bring to your attention
Yeah.
too, and I was going to ask Mr. Alston that if he already owns the property, which he does, and currently it's zoned SF4, but the future land use map, has that area zoned for medium intensity business.
Right.
And so, he's, I think, given the the need for what he needs to do as far as the business is concerned. He owns the property. The future land use map is already slated for medium-intensity business.
I'm just voicing my
Sure.
objection, you know,
Yes, sir.
and that's what I'm saying, because so many times when the Walmart was moved in, there were a lot of people up here speaking in objection to it, but it came on anyway. But to be able to come and speak before you, to, you know, to let you know what kind of effect it was gonna have. I mean, you know, just like I say, a school bus and a car meeting on Church Street, somebody's gotta pull over. So if you're gonna do an accommodation behind us to accommodate more parking, I don't see the logic.
Well, I guess that's a question also, the access to Church Street. Mr. Austin, I guess that's, you wanted that for,
You view the Church Street.
you wanted that for a specific reason, I guess, or is that something that we made them have two access points?
No, there is no
by
access
ordinance?
to
Yeah,
Church
there'll be
Street.
no access to Church Street.
This-
That was a plat restriction to
Oh.
prevent that traffic from coming
This-
through the neighborhood.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong spot.
This won't increase or decrease.
Yes, sir.
Or have
I'm
any
sorry.
effect on the Church
I was
Street.
looking at the wrong spot.
But I'm with him,
My
we'd like to
mistake.
widen Church Street, though,
Sure,
you know.
sure. Mr. Manning, did you have additional comments? Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Manning.
Mr. Manning, Commissioner Murphy has.
You said something about value. What were you referring to?
You're speaking in reference to,
You said something about our value.
if you notice, there's some houses that are being built as you're entering Church Street, as you're entering on the opposite side, I think it's Church Point and all of this. And we really like to see that continued and everything, but we're also looking at the beautification and so forth around that area. When you're crowding up, you know, some parking, you know, it's gonna be concrete. Just like the lady asked about the brutalization of it or whatever. But just to say that, you know, you're gonna, you know, knock down some trees to put a parking lot, it's kind of like making a hothouse.
How many new houses have been built in the neighborhood there?
On that side, we're looking at, I think it's 4,
In the total neighborhood, how many new houses?
8, 6. I'm thinking it's 7, you know, on both sides of the church.
Of Church Street?
And then there's other plots open, you know, to be built and everything. And we're,
Would you put the land use map back up, please? Mr. Mann, do you understand that the purple area you see right there,
right,
that the concept is that all that purple area would be rezoned and developed into medium intensity business?
right.
So do you see what that does to your neighborhood?
Yeah. It shortens the depth, but yet you're still taking away for, you know,
But, Mr. Manning, you might consider though, also from from where that, you know, that proposed zoning change is, that area right there to Church Street, you know, is about 250 feet. You know, so it's not quite a football field, you know, from that area to Church Street. So
Right.
it's pretty good distance right there.
Right. But like I was saying, to speak in objection to is to say that why would you put parking back there when you can't widen the street itself? But I know someone owns the property and so forth, but
Well, as far as like the street widening and stuff, that, you know, just like right now, City of Longview is going through, we had a $52 million bond election here a few years ago. And a lot of those street widening projects that were slated for that bond election are coming to fruition right now. And I think we're kind of doing apples and oranges here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is to speak against it. Just like when the people came here for the Walmart and all that, and unless you know what I'm going through, is what I'm trying to relate to you is to add on to that. Okay, fine. I'm not against the city growing. The Roadhouse, it's been there a good while. The parking over there by the dentist and on the hill and in the back and so forth, that's great. I love it. But what I'm not wanting is to take property from me and the people that I'm representing, which is our little community back there. This is what we don't want to happen. But if it happens, okay, cool. But I'm just saying, it doesn't really make much sense.
How long has that neighborhood been there?
Gosh, since before Longview High School.
Okay, and there's a church down on the corner there.
Right there,
at
at Church Street, right there at the end.
And that church's been there for
Ages,
a number of years.
yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it was a little frame church before it was a brick church.
And so now the neighborhood is at a point where you're having some newer houses being built in
Exactly.
there, so the neighborhood is starting to rebound some.
Exactly, but the streets are not widened, the place is not really enhanced any. So that's what I'm just saying is, okay?
Yes, sir.
I think someone else is going to speak up.
Sure.
Well, and I'd just like to make a comment in between them coming up about the streets and this extra piece. Mr. Austin's one of the ones that has developed a lot of these new houses in that area. And when we start looking at our CIP list and everything, one of the things they look at is, the amount of traffic, the amount of houses, and in the past, the demand wasn't there. Hopefully, as we see some additional development there, farther back around on Smith, there's some lots back there. There'll be more demand, and hopefully one day we can do that. And Mr. Austin can speak to this a little bit more because we've had this conversation. Is the types of houses that he's building, the lot as you see it is very large compared to the lots that he developed across the street. And one of the concerns that he had is being able to sell the home to somebody that would want that much yard to take care of, that they really don't want that large of a yard. And so to help him develop that and sell those lots and to meet a need of an adjacent property owner, he felt this was the best use of the property. And he can speak more of that, but I just wanted to share that with you because it wasn't in the staff report and he hadn't touched on it yet.
Okay. Ma'am, you comment? And
Good evening. My name is Shelda Pierce Bush. I live at 2500 Airline Road. I am on the corner of Airline and Church Street. I am a descendant of the original property owner of that strip that Mr. Austin is developing. I believe the gentleman here to my right asked the question. Years ago, we were here and we requested that addition, that area that we're speaking about, be zoned for family, and it was approved for family. Since then, the original family members that lived there are now deceased. And the property was left to a cousin of mine that lived out of town in the Dallas area. And he sold it to Mr. Austin. Since then, Mr. Austin has built homes in that area. We have no objection to the Roadhouse parking, but not at that location. And the reason being is, I can speak for my aunt. I know for a fact that she did not want it. But when you sell out to family members, they don't have that desire. So as a result, Mr. Austin has developed the area. He has built homes, but we're requesting that the parking does not be there.
But they don't have anywhere else to go.
Okay. What about the dentist's office there? I know one while it was up for sale. I don't know if anyone is there now. if that building.
Well, I would imagine,
It's on the hill right next to
right,
the
That may not-
Roadhouse.
that
And
may-
like I said, we love the Roadhouse. We go there and we eat.
that may not have been in Mr. Austin's business plan when
Okay,
he started in that area.
well, I know years ago, they did request, and my aunt did not sell, but as a result, he is legally and we understand that. But we wish that the planning would request, back when we requested that that area be zoned for family.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think we have to kind of, weigh all of the, everything. And at the front, up along the loop, like I said, I think there's a safety issue up there with the parking. There's certainly an appearance issue because
Yes, that area, I agree, sir. That
And-
area is,
and given that those lots are so large, it's 250 feet from that area to Church Street.
well,
And
I know there's one home now that's been built. We haven't seen anyone move into it. But I can only go by what we see. I have not walked up there because I don't want to trespass. That's no longer property in the family. But I believe that once you put the fence up, we're still going to have problems because, as Mr. Manning stated, since they have built the Raising Cane restaurant there, people are parking across the street on the side of us. They're parking at the bank. We understand that, but I just feel that there are other problems that we're having in our little community. The majority of the people that lived in that community are deceased. And it's only a few of us that, other than the new homes that he has built. But as I stated, we requested years ago that that remain family, and we would request that, if you all would honor that request.
Mrs. Bush?
Yes.
I think you all have quite a nice neighborhood, and I think the developments that are taking place there are very nice. I think it looks like a vital neighborhood, and I think also you look like you care for your property, you maintain it well. So do you not think that this landscaped buffer area with the privacy fence would be a good solution?
It might be for we're down on the end.
You're on the east end?
Let's see, we're on the corner of
Oh, yeah, you're there.
Airline
Okay, got it.
and
You're on the
Church
west end,
Street.
yes.
Right. I believe you're wanting to build further up from us. Right next to my house is another home. Then there's property, I don't know how many lots there, and then he's just built a home that I think would be affected by the parking lot that you're wanting to do in the back.
With a privacy fence?
With the privacy fence, yes. But we still will have problems. Right now, we get Coke containers. You're going to get that even doing football, but my husband and I will just go and pick it up. I mean, it's thrown in the yard. We hear loud music coming from the restaurants. We haven't complained because, that's a part of life. But we just prefer that you maintain the family that we have requested you all to do so.
Well, there's areas like this all over town where we have that boundary between, the medium intensity business or commercial areas and residential areas. And we've made provisions for that with the buffering, and in this case, I think that we have the added advantage of having the distance out there that gives a little bit more buffering. But at the end of the day, Mr. Alston owns the property.
Right.
And the future land use map is slated for medium-intensity business, and his request is, and we have in my opinion, a safety issue on the loop, as well as an appearance, because they can't keep grass out there because people park on it. And so I think we got to kind of weigh everything together and come up with a recommendation. But I do understand your concerns.
Sir, and also,
Yes, sir.
This is my husband,
that's
Ernest Bush.
Ernest Bush.
Ernest? Yes, sir.
Live at 25 Airline also. Also a concern for safety on Church Street. So small, one car can pass through, but I'm up here for the irrigation. The irrigation that you said that would be put out there, that's gonna take off of my property because that water gonna run right down to my house, the way they got it cut in. I talked to Mr. Frost, he's been out there, the city manager have been out there. And when they get a good rain, irrigation, or when that hill be using their sprinklers, I get ready to mow, I have to weed eat that ditch with boots on because you can't mow it. That ditch is full of water.
Well, as far as this evening, you know, what our task is this evening is to focus on the rezoning request.
Yes, but I think...
As far as the street width, the drainage, and all of that stuff, that's really not in our purview.
I think I think what he is saying, that if you build a buffer, she mentioned landscaping and whatnot, that water is gonna run down to our property. In our backyard, it's wet, it stays wet.
See, that sounds like a drainage issue, and see, that would be part of the site development design that will go through development services and be reviewed by their engineering staff.
Okay.
And when I was talking about irrigation, we passed an ordinance a couple of years ago that all the new commercial development has to have lawn sprinklers, and that was my question. But and I don't know that that's going to flood anything.
Okay, well, our concern is we request that the area still remain family living.
Single family. We come up
Single
here and
family.
you told us it'd be single family when we was up here a couple of years ago. When we voted up here, we was up here and everybody was in the neighborhood. They wanted it single family instead of commercial. And they told us it would be single families, and so we were requesting that it stay that way.
Remain that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Any additional present who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Having none, the public hearing for application Z14-07 is now closed. Do I have a motion?
Let me make a comment too. I can really sympathize with you on Church Street. I think that is and hopefully if we build new houses in there and as your neighbors come in and all, that may be widened in the future, we don't know, can't tell, but I can really sympathize with you on Church Street. Since this is not going to affect the traffic on Church Street at all, and it is in compliance with all the ordinances we have, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this request for rezoning.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion passes. Additionally, this evening, we have the honor of having with us Councilman Gary Smith, who will be the liaison between City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I kind of waited. I hope you don't mind, Councilman Smith. I kind of waited a little bit. I mean, you see kind of how we do things a little bit. It's kind of loose. We have a discussion. We all talk about it and try tried to get everybody's point of view out there, and so please,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I would like to make a comment. How you doing, commissioners? I'm gonna reiterate my name again. I'm not Mr. Sims, so my name is Gary L. Smith, and I represent the Southwest District Number 2. I was appointed by Mayor J. Dean, our mayor, City of Longview, to be the liaison for the Planning and Zoning Commission for year 14 and 15. So I left my cards on your desk. You got any questions, you can give me a call if you need. There's our staff representative. You can call him also. Thank you.
yes, sir. Thank you for being with us this evening. Okay. Staff update.
From the previous zoning case cycle, those cases will be heard by council this Thursday. So we don't have any updates as of yet on those.
And then also, I know we're kind of out of order here a little bit, but Mr. Manning, just like when, at the beginning of the meeting, all we do is make a recommendation to council. You know, it's not a done deal until, city council will decide ultimately whether, if our recommendation passes or not. So,
Some time ago, so I know how it's handled.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
What did y'all say? it was?
Commissioner comments?
I didn't.
Citizen comment?
And just
Staff has
one,
one-
yeah,
We wanted to clarify the council date that this zoning item is going to go to. It's August the 14th.
So y'all gonna do that someday. Y'all gonna put something on there, and I'm just gonna read it off, and I can see it coming
So that
now.
replaced August the 21st.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to clarify the
See?
date for
There we
everybody.
go. Okay, no additional comments. This meeting's adjourned.